Hi everyone, this is Parmesh. Welcome to the launch of my new book, Queeristan. This Culture Lab event is the first of many conversations planned around the book. Today I'm going to share parts of the book with you and also have a conversation with some stars who are the future of the queer movement in India. I want to start out by reading this bit from the opening of the book. This is how the book opens. I always knew I was gay, just as straight people always know that they are straight. There was this one moment though when I was maybe 8 years old. I was watching Naseeb, a multi-starrer movie featuring Hema Malini, who I love. Hema is the ultimate queer icon. I don't know why people are obsessed with this Sri Devi versus Rekha comparison. And everyone forgets Hema ji. Razia Sultan, anyone? In the Naseeb song, Hema wears a black sequined sheath dress and a pink feather boa and comes down in a big balloon basket from the ceiling singing, Mere naseeb mein tu hai ke nahi. Now, I mean, how camp was Manmohan Desai? That was it. A light bulb went off in my head. I wanted to be her. I wanted to wear that feather boa and seduce men. I didn't want to be Amitabh Eeks. I wanted to be Hema. So this is how the book begins, and then we continue. Hello, I'm Parmesh Shahani, and I am a gay man. If you are reading this book, it means that you are somewhat interested in the topic. Maybe the name intrigued you, maybe you work at a company, or maybe you're a student. Maybe you are LGBTQ yourself and are wondering what's next now that Section 377 is gone. Maybe you're an ally, not lesbian or gay or bi or trans or queer yourself, but have friends who are or simply care about these issues. Maybe you're a parent or a professor wondering what future your ward is moving towards. Maybe LGBTQ issues don't really interest you, but you care about corporate India or young India or ever-changing India. I've written this book hoping that it will be eye-opening for all of you. Through Queeristan, I want to share my surreal decade-long journey at my workplace, Godrej, and the path that so many other people have taken across corporate India in their quest for inclusion. The time for LGBTQ inclusion in the Indian workplace is now, and I argue this by using lots of statistics, case studies, and general practical gyan. I will also take you on my adventures across India with some foreign detours as a bonus, like those Switzerland song in those Yash Chopra movies. What to do? We are like this, bilkul Bollywood obsessed. You will also encounter many others who are at the vanguard of the LGBTQ inclusion movement in our country. You can use this book as a roadmap and as a compass. Reading about my own experiences, as well as other real life stories, will hopefully motivate you to act and help you on your journey. I've complemented these stories with a list of concrete steps you can take and resources you can use. If you're LGBTQ yourself, then I hope this book will make you love yourself more and realize that there is a whole world, not just out there, but right here, waiting to welcome you, and we are creating it each day with our actions and our connections. It is rainbow colored and beautiful. So let us put on that Hema-inspired black sequin dress and pink feather boa and sashay towards it, shall we? If you are straight, don't worry. Welcome. Join the party. The category is inclusion. So that's actually the only bit of the book I'll be reading because a lot of the voices in the book are actually here. So I want to actually give a massive shout out to my Westland team, the best publishing team in the world, Kartika, Janani, Shweta, Arunama, everyone at Westland, Kindle and Audible, who's been working so hard through the pandemic to get this book out. For today's launch, the special Culture Lab launch, a very big thank you to the entire Culture Lab team, Dan, Koni, Mukta, Pallavi, especially Nainika and Sanya, who along with the brilliant Pratyush helped with the research for this book. And all our Culture Lab alums, previous team members and collaborators, around and at Godrej as well, whether it's Kevin, Rushra, Ojas, Avanti, Abhay, Guru, I wish I want to list all your names because, all of you are in this book and have helped shape it in some way or the other. Multiple collaborators over the years, my boss Nisa, everyone else at Godrej. So thank you. And the biggest thank you is to everyone who's in the book. You will see some of the voices today, but the book is really about these four, the people you will see, and so many others, all of whom are creating a new queer and inclusive India. Some of them are queer, some of them are allies. And this book is actually an amplification of all of your different voices and stories. A big shout out to our wonderful sign language interpreters for the evening from Access for All joining us, Ananta and Pinky. Thank you very much. I want to remind everyone to join the Queeristan conversation by simply using the hashtag Queeristan while Instagramming or tweeting. Please send us your questions and comments on our Facebook Live, which if you're watching, this is a good time to tell all your other friends that this is happening so they can join in. I want to give you a very quick overview of the book, just to give you a taste of it. And then, of course, we hope you will go out and get it. So the book has 5 sections. Section 1, so we kind of begin with my personal and Godrej journey. You heard a little bit of the beginning, right? It drops you into the book, into this universe. And, through this personal journey, you get to learn a little bit about, my background and some of the changes that we've been doing at Godrej, right? Then the book goes a little outward and gives you a background of what it means to be LGBTQ in India. In terms of the law, in terms of, the terms that we use for ourselves, in terms of, a different way of historicizing the LGBTQ movement in India, and how important family to us. There's a whole chapter called It's All About Loving Your Children. I start with this, the personal story, as well as giving you the context of being LGBTQ so that the reader really understands. This is, because so many business books just tell you about, make recommendations. But I really wanted to set the context for the readers, which is why I thought it was important to take you through my own journey, as well as give you a little bit of our background. Then I shift gears into business and talk about, in the 3rd section of the book, 4 reasons why inclusion is so important. And, it makes you more money, it makes you more innovative, it enables you to attract the best talent, and it's really good for your reputation in today's world of Gen Z, millennials, and so on. And each of these reasons is a separate chapter accompanied by individuals and different case studies. Then we shift gears even more because a lot of time, because we've been talking about this for a while, and so many people have been reaching out and saying, okay, I want to make my company LGBTQ inclusive, or I want to make my organization inclusive. What do I do? So that next section has 6 steps, and each step is a chapter on what you can do practically, and exactly what policies need to be changed, what kind of workshops you need to have. So it's very practical, again, accompanied by great case studies. Finally, in the last bit of the book, I shift gears again and move back again from business and kind of outline the ideal world coming up all around us. It's a deeply optimistic book, and I end the book on a deeply optimistic note. I look at the changes taking place in film, in books, in politics, in various states of India, some of whom are more progressive than others in being affirmative. In terms of the law, I look at schools and colleges, families, and all the amazing young intersectional queer movements that are happening all around us. And I argue that we need to focus on these and build from these, not just a better workplace, but also a better society. And, I finished the book pre-COVID, but I think post-COVID, the title of that chapter, Other Worlds Are Important, takes on an even more important significance. Because if we have to create, a better normal, it has to be a more inclusive normal, right? So the book is many things. It's a personal diary. It's also a business book. It has movies, TV, TikTok, parties, job fairs. It's in India, it's abroad. There's a little bit of my and other people's love stories too. I honor the elders of the queer movement in it and also showcase the vanguard and the next generation. So it's a full-on Bollywood masala film with family as its central theme. It has stats as well as stories. So I hope that it will appeal to, readers' hearts and minds as well. And I'm like very, very excited that it's out in the world. So that's a very quick overview of the book. For more, please do read the book. I would now like to invite our speakers for the evening to join me in actually launching the book. So Grace, Rafiul, Neelam and Ritesh, can we have you on video with your copies of the book, please? And I think we're gonna take a picture. Yeah, everyone please switch on your video. And when you are ready, can you show your book? Rafiul, you can just smile. And the Cultural Lab team can tell us in the box when you've taken the picture. Pandemic book launches. Done. Excellent. So thank you very much for everyone. Now remain on screen for everyone who is watching. These are some of the young queer voices you will hear in the book, and you're very lucky to be hearing them today at this book launch. I'm going to introduce each one of them and we will move into the adda version. And then we will open it up to questions, that you can send in. So please keep on sending in your questions already. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce each and every one of our incredible speakers for the evening. Each of them has started a very inspiring organization which addresses a different need in the queer community. I'm going to introduce them one by one together and then hand it over to them. First up, Grace Banu is a transgender activist and founder of the Trans Rights Now Collective. She's the first trans person to be admitted to an engineering college in Tamil Nadu. She's also a writer. And Grace, welcome back to the lab. So happy that you are back again with us. Grace features in so many parts of the book. But I'm most inspired actually by the work, Grace, that you have been doing over the past few months on COVID relief for trans people in Tamil Nadu, which actually ends the book, so it ends chapter 19. So Grace, welcome, and can we all as panelists welcome you? Thank you. Next, I want to introduce Neelam Jain. Neelam is the founder and CEO of PeriFerry, a social enterprise which is empowering the Indian transgender community through employment and upskilling opportunities. Over the years, they've created jobs for more than 170 trans people and have sensitized more than 18,000 corporate Indian employees. So Neelam, I'm a big fan. Welcome to the lab stage once again. Again, for all of those watching, Neelam features in many places in the book, including one where I describe a periphery carnival within Wipro. What I really love about Neelam is that as an ally, she is setting up so many amazing infrastructures of possibility for us queer people. And there are so many such amazing allies out there. So for all of those who are watching this and who happen to be straight, please be like Neelam. Please be like Neelam and join us because, queer people, we need you, we need your allyship, and we need to be doing this together. So Neelam, welcome. Next up is Ritesh Rajani, the co-founder of Diversity Dialogues and the founding geek of incluzive.tech. In his last role, Ritesh was the HR diversity engagement partner for IBM Asia Pacific, where he worked extensively on policies and programs for inclusion of people with disabilities and other dimensions of inclusion. Ritesh is very passionate about developing assistive technologies and is trained in basic sign language. Again, Ritesh features in so many parts of the book, but the part I want to highlight, including dancing together in a slinky but not sleeveless t-shirt at a post-pride party. But what I want to highlight here is about how he talks about his company IBM, which has, his previous company, which created an inclusive environment for him, of course, and have been recognized for that. but also made LGBTQ inclusion a profitable business for themselves. So it's truly win-win, right? And that chapter is called LGBT inclusion can make you money, and they've actually shown how. I would now love to introduce Rafiul, Alom, Rahman, the founder of the Queer Muslim Project. He represents India on the Beijing Plus 25 Global Youth Task Force set up by UN Women, and was nominated as a young change maker by the Hindu Business Line in 2018. Rafiul closes this book as a ray of hope. In the book, I write about both of us at the Rainbow Lit Fest in Delhi as the Nizami brothers are singing a qawwali, and how we, and we're kind of sitting on the lawn and talking about all the incredible work that he's been doing with the Queer Muslim Project. Of course, I've known and loved Rafiul for many years before that as well. So it's a matter of personal pride to see Rafiul just, grow and expand his horizon of work and the change that is happening. So I end the book by talking about QMP as well as many other projects like Dalit Queer Project and Chinky Homo Project, as to give you just a glimpse of some of the intersectional futures that young, queer leaders of today are imagining. So with that, we're going to open up to the adda part of today's book launch. I have one question that I'm going to ask each one of them, and they're going to share their thoughts for about 4 or 5 minutes. And then we open up to a Q&A with everyone. And that question is, tell us about your one dream to create a more queer, inclusive India in future. And of course, you can also respond to the book if or whatever parts of it you might have read by now. So Grace, can we start with you? Tell us about your one dream to create a more queer, inclusive India in future.
Thank you, Parmesh, and congratulations to give this wonderful book. I read all the histories, and all of you. It's very useful to all over. It's useful for the community as well as as you said, the allies and the policymakers. So, and thank you so much again to giving this opportunity to launch this beautiful and wonderful, colorful book. And yeah, me too. You did, Parmesh. And I have so many dreams, but you asked only one dream. We need queer community doesn't have any differences. We are the humans, so we the people, as the civil society people, should treat us like a human. A. And B, we need a normal life. Normal people like cis communities, cisgender people, how they are accessing the spaces, all the spaces. The people who have the privileges, those people should share their privileges to the people who doesn't have a privilege, any privilege. It should be going to it's an equal society, equal opportunity to all of us. The queer people in India, especially the as I said, the minority community people, Dalit, Adivasi, Muslim community people should come forward to access the mainstream spaces. And people like us, the people who have the privileges, So you should share your privileges to those minority people. And we don't need the differentiation like color, caste, gender related, society. So that different kind of the difference we are seeing the all other people. A human, you should treat another human like a human. That's it. So that kind of society, the peaceful society we need.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace.
Thank
you. Ritesh, do you want to go next and tell us your dream?
Sure. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I will have two dreams which I want to cover. Given that I have two different types of ventures, I will cover.
Grace could have also given two dreams.
Right. So, first of all, Parmesh, thank you for having me here and congratulations for this launch. I've been excited since the time that you've reached out to me to share perspectives in the book. Good to see this coming to fruition, and even in the middle of a pandemic, you managed to get it released. So, good job to you and everybody else who has been, supporting you in getting this launched. So, congratulations. My dream is going to be about corporate India, given that I do work in this space of corporate inclusion. So I will talk about the future that I look forward to. When we talk about the future, we do have to look about the past as well. And the way we've come here is that there were a few corporates before 2018, before Section 377 was read down, who did take the courage to take those steps to understand what the law meant, that the law was not really preventing them from being LGBT inclusive, to have understood that and taken those steps even before the law, caught up. But I think largely there was a lot of invisibilization of the community. Large parts of corporate India did acknowledge that they already had all spectrums of the LGBTQ community in their workplaces already working for them, right? So there was a moment for me where suddenly from invisibilization we went to celebration, right? And of course we are Indian and we love to celebrate. So that's of course very we love the celebration, and it's great that there are people who want to come and be part of this moment. But one thing we have to understand is in the current scheme of celebration, we've sort of celebrated the people who are out, right? And you have to understand that's a very, very small population of the actual community. They say that 6 to 14% of any population could be from this community. And even if you take the lowest estimate, we have not anywhere close to that many, the representation even being acknowledged in corporate India, right? To know that, what about the people who are not out there? What about people who are not celebrated? So to listen to who is in the closet, right? And who is in the closet? They are the identities who are not fully represented, because today a lot of the out people happen to be cis gay men. So to understand that, there is a lot of privilege coming into play because of gender, because of biological sex, because of urban rural divides, because of language, because of economic strata, because of caste, right? So to understand that coming out requires a lot of circumstantial things that need to work for a person, and not just having an inclusive environment, right? So to make the effort, I think for me, Queer India in the future makes the effort to listen to who is in the closet, to listen to the identities who are still being invisibilized and not represented enough, and to see what their needs are, right? And to create perhaps safe spaces where those needs are coming out, to understand if there are actually issues which this unknown set of people are facing today, right? Because what happens is if you're celebrating too much, and the people in the closet, and I was in the closet for a long period of my life, I would get intimidated of the celebration. I would tend to run away, right? Even if I was facing issues. So to spend some time in actually listening to it. My second future, and I'll keep this short as well. I know Rafi and Grace will touch upon the intersections. Grace spoke about the intersection of caste, right? The Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi communities, and I'm sure Rafi will speak about more. But the intersection that I want to acknowledge in the future of Queer India is the intersection of queer and disability, right? And I'm so happy that we do have sign language interpreters here, which is sort of acknowledging that intersection, that there are people in the community and allies who who get left out because of disabilities, because of accessibility issues. And today our queer spaces, not just in corporate India but even outside, our pride parades, our events, our dating applications, our image of the disability community is very siloed and very different. So in Queer India, I do hope for an accessible and queer inclusive India, and that's my thing. And end of the day, we are all part of Queeristan. We all have a shared love. We have all have a deep love for this country that we are born in and we live in, right? And for us to be able to contribute as equal citizens, contribute in terms of GDP, if you look at it from a capitalistic perspective, but also contribute in terms of social capital that we bring, and in terms of the human value we bring to this country. So I think that's my dream, two dreams of future of Queer India.
Ritesh, thank you. Thank you so much. I want to ask Neelam now. Neelam, share your dream with us.
Thanks so much, Parmesh, and the entire team. Honestly, this is literally history, what you created, and I'm super grateful that I could share this moment with all of you, and which is why I really feel like we're all connected in more ways than one. So thank you so much for doing this and for really recognizing so many people who've brought this movement and have actually made a difference, putting all of that here and doing such extensive research. I think this is something that every person should put their hands on, and no one, you've not sponsored us to say this. This just genuinely comes from heart. So thank you so much for having me and for this discussion. For me, I feel like my core and my the way that I've felt with this moment, and as an ally, the biggest contribution I think an ally can make is to be on the peripherals and to help nudge and push the movement in whatever capacity that they can. And I was grateful that I did have people like Grace Banu and others who did sort of guide and who were there to give a sort of ray of hope for allies like us to come forward as well. My hope actually comes from the community itself, and I just want to share this one really short story itself. This is about Madhu. Madhu is a 34-year-old transgender woman, and the first time that I got to know her was before I started up PeriFerry. So she had reached out saying that, you know what, I'm 34 years of age, I'm looking for a job. And at that point, she had already spent about 15 to 20 years of her life away from her family. She was ostracized. She spent her livelihood just by begging or being involved in sex work. And she was also educated as well. It's not that she didn't have the education or the skills, but she was just completely systematically oppressed, and also by her family. And family is something that you so deeply talk about in your book as well. So for her, having the job was not just about financial independence, but what it also meant was a way to become a role model for her community, to shine out as someone who can show hope and path to so many other transgender people, and also a way for her to connect back with her family, because whatever said and done, having financial independence, having a job is something that influences Indian families like nothing else. So my hope is really that, and my dream is that I know that the Indian corporate has the potential to make that difference in the lives of innumerable transgender people by creating those job opportunities, not only for people who are educated or skilled, but also creating an equal playing field for people who did not have that exposure, could not get that education. Corporate India has those resources, has those ways in which they can create such an equal playing field. So my hope is that we really do that, and know that you're not doing this for the community, you're also actually doing it for yourself, because at the end of the day, what you're getting is great talent. You get people who value that opportunity. and you're actually able to make a difference in your own life more than somebody else's life. And which is what I've always felt as an ally. Although we sort of make it sound larger than life and say that, you know, as an ally, I'm doing X, Y, Z, but I do feel like I'm actually doing this a lot for myself. I feel much more empowered. I feel a better human doing this, and which is what I hope every ally feels at the end of the day. So yeah, that's about it. My hope is that we create opportunities for those who need it the most. And I just want to thank all the people who've created this movement and actually have led it so far. So thank you so much for listening in.
Thank you, Neelam. Thank you. Rafiul, over to you. Tell us about your hope.
For some reason, this is turning out to be such an emotional moment for me. Parmesh, I'm incredibly proud to be a part of the launch of this book. And you know why I say that. Because I think in my own life, the kindness and the compassion that I have received from you, I mean, in so many ways, I think, you know, we are talking about inclusion and Ritesh has said it beautifully, Grace has shared, but there are very few people who can platform voices, who can give, you know, that supporting hand to a young person who might be trying to figure his way out in the world. And I think at a very early point in my career, I had the support of someone like you, and I feel incredibly proud that today I'm getting to be part of this conversation. When I read the book, I must say it is so beautifully written. I didn't care about anything else. I was like, let me see how he writes. And it was almost me telling to myself that when I grow up, I want to write like Parmesh Shahani. So, so thank you so much for that. In terms of my hope and dream, you know, I work at the intersections of gender, sexuality, faith, and of course with religious minorities. At a time when we are, as a country, you know, also faced with so many challenges around diversity, around equality, around rights, and I think my co-panelists, I mean Ritesh and others, have so beautifully talked about that intersection. And I think in the book itself, the way you capture that little moment from the anti-CAA protests, and the way you go on to describe what Queeristan will look like, you know, the different facets of a hopeful, beautiful, incredible future for queer people. I think it all resonated so strongly. And I feel that when I was reading your book, what came to me was that what stood out for me was that, yes, we imagine futures, right? But so in so many ways, we don't recognize these little things, the shifts that are happening around us. And I think your book is a celebration. Your book is also, while it is critical in so many ways, but it also celebrates. And it tells us to be a little more kind to ourselves and to the movement, you know. And I think moving forward, I would say my dream is that, you know, we can all be kind to ourselves as queer activists. Too often we don't do that, and we can hold each other and hold you know, ourselves with more kindness and care. Yeah, and build a beautiful future for all of us together. Yeah, that's my dream.
Thank you, Rafiul. So for everyone, you know, who shared their dreams, I know we asked you for one dream, but, you know, for anyone who's just tuned in right now, you know, please send us your questions using the comment section on Facebook, or you can go to Twitter and send them using #Queeristan on Twitter, or on our Instagram story as well. You know, our team is looking at all of these. So, you know, you can send a question using any platform that is convenient to you. I'm just going to ask my team if there are any questions which have come in already. So if they have, then we can start answering them. And if they haven't, then Grace, do you want to tell us the second dream? While we wait for the questions to come, Grace, tell us this, because
Yes.
you did this too. Come on.
Okay. So my second dream is, you know, as you said, the inclusion in the employment sector. So we have a public sector and the private sector. So we should create a law, the protection law for the employers who are identified as queer. So you know, LGBTIQ, the minority, gender minority people. So we are also a employer, and we are also a labor. So we should include the labor law, you know, and the labor law should come to support to inclusive this minority, gender minority people. And I remember when I was working in the private sector, it's a software field. So I was like, I faced too much discrimination in that workspace. You know, they knew I'm a Dalit, and they knew I'm a trans. When I expressed my gender identity, immediately they reduced my salary, and they increased my working hours. You know, and they picked my you know, they gave residents a house, and they take back all the residents things, and suddenly I don't have anything.
Yeah. So laws that prevent this kind of discrimination, right? Labor
Yes.
laws are more.
And especially when I did my surgery, that time I faced too much super discrimination in the workspace.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't give the medical leave, and they didn't inclusive. You know, when the pregnant women, the cis women get the medical leave, but we don't have that kind of rights.
Yeah.
Because we when we get a SRS surgery, we should have some medical leave now with salary.
Yeah.
So this kind of things, solution, it came from my discrimination when I faced.
And even in engineering, you've spoken, right, about
Of course.
in engineering college before as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's toxic. So.
Yeah, when I enter into the engineering college, they gave only the seat allotment, but it's not a private it's not a public college, government college. They gave only private college. I am a first transman who applied the engineering college.
Yeah.
And I got in the sense I don't have a qualification. I have a qualification. I got a 95% of mark.
Yeah.
And they didn't give the government college, and they gave only private college. It's not in the town, in the city.
Yeah.
It's far from my where I was stayed in the Chennai. So Chennai to my college, I have to travel 2.5 hours journey, morning and the evening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and that is also it's gave some relaxation. It's only for acceptance, the people acceptance. That's it.
Yeah, so
and other than that, yeah, the support.
Yeah, we need
support. And I was staying in the rental house. I have to pay my rent. I have to pay my book. I have to buy a book materials, and I have to you know, I have to manage food. So this kind of things I didn't get any support from the government.
Yeah,
I got the support from only the activists like us, the individuals. So many individuals gave support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Grace. We've got two more questions. We've got two, and one is for you, Rafiul. I'm just going to ask both. And Rafiul, you can answer this, and the one for you and the education one is open to everyone. So Rafiul, the question for you is, how has the Queer Muslim Project grown over the years? And what are your plans for the future with it? And of course, and whoever has asked that question, you can read all about it in the book. So Rafiul is going to give you like just a little bit.
Thank you, Parmesh. The Queer Muslim Project has suddenly grown over the years, and thanks to, of course, community members, but also the goodwill of allies, I would say. And in fact, we are currently, we've given a call for a course that we are starting that looks at gender, sexuality, in Islam. So it's going to be happening online, but over the next 5 months. So that's something that we're really excited about doing. We've got a bunch of amazing feminist Islamic scholars from different parts of the world. And the idea is to build more progressive, affirmative sort of spaces. And of course, we are we are now growing as an organization. So also looking at the different kinds of work that we want to do, not only with on faith, but also looking at, art and culture as a space that's very important for us. And in fact, in June, we collaborated with British Council and did this month-long Digital Pride Festival. So we got a bunch of artists together, folks from India, Godrej India Culture Lab were also there. So it's been, some amazing developments that have happened over the years. Yeah. So really excited about where we go. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Ira Kamble, and it's not addressed to anyone in particular, but to everyone. How can we establish the idea of Queeristan in higher education institutions so that it carries over in the workplace, right? And that's good. Like, how do we bring about this earlier on, before the workplace? Who wants to take it? Maybe Ritesh, do you want to take it? And then I'll ask Neelam the next question. Does that work? Or
Sure. I mean, that works.
great.
So I think, generally the concept of education of sexuality and gender, right, is sometimes mixed with sex education, or is misinterpreted by a lot of educational institutions in that, and in that space. But what may be useful is to start bringing the subject of gender sexuality in, in any mid and higher education institutes from a aspect of bullying and harassment, right? And not just covering only harassment related to gender expression or, sexuality related things, but also bring in other aspects of bullying and sexuality, right? On height, on weight, on everything else. So I think to intersect with the larger issues of what it means to have an inclusive education, where people from all spaces can access it, and also be protected when there are issues, I think is a good way to start in the higher education space. And we are also seeing a lot of change with respect to the millennial population who has access to a lot more information, right? There are education institutes, more in the privileged spaces, more in the urban spaces, also more in the tier 1 type of institutes, where we are seeing these resource groups coming up in these IITs, IIMs, and I'm hoping that it slowly percolates into, more institutes where you have support groups, you have ally groups for members of the community to be part of, to get empowered, to share their stories and to have a voice which is represented, right? So I think these are few things that can start in institutes where it will soon percolate to workplaces as well.
Thanks, Ritesh. And the next one is, it's for Neelam and you. So Neelam, do you want to try it? And then Ritesh, you can add in. It's from Koni. It says, how can corporate India respond to or contribute to policy change with the state, especially towards amending the trans bill? Does corporate India have any power to influence the state? And, how do they do this? That's a great question. Yeah. Others, Grace and Rafiul also, pitch in.
Yeah. So what I honestly feel is just over the span of past 1 year, the trans bill has gone through a couple of iterations, a couple of reviews as well. And that is only and only because there were people who were constantly talking about it, protesting. There were people who were saying, this is not right, this is how it should be. And there were activists like Grace Banu actually leading it and asking for change. So I do strongly believe that the corporate India, especially with the kind of economic impact that they have, their voice can mean a ton. And it will make the government and everybody look at you, because when an IBM or maybe a Goldman Sachs or somebody would say that, hey, you know what, I see this in the bill and this doesn't look okay, you will definitely have the government of India looking into it, and there's no other way. I'm sure Grace and others can really answer that as to how they can partner and impact the policies itself. But what I want to talk about is, as an organization, you don't necessarily have to wait for that. That's what I believe. Because even before Section 377 was decriminalized, there were so many companies doing so much for the LGBTQ employees. They were sensitizing, they were openly, actively hiring trans and other LGBTQ people, and creating that movement, which I feel also led to decriminalizing Section 377. So if you're a corporate and if you're listening in, I feel like you should just take the action with whatever resources that you have at your disposal. And maybe your first step is to probably create an ERG and a resource group within your organization that can talk about it and decide, okay, brainstorm on what to do, how to take things forward. Maybe then you want to work on recruitment of open and out LGBTQ people, because that visibility makes a ton of a difference. And then also look at policy alongside. So you don't necessarily have to wait on a specific policy to work out, but you can take actions, affirmative actions from day one. So that's what I feel.
Thanks. Does anyone else want to add in terms of, how corporates can be involved? Yeah.
I do agree with Neelam that you don't have to wait for the law to change. I'll go into a little more specific of what corporates can do. And this is something, at Diversity Dialogues, the organization which I've started with Madhumita Venkatraman, we get a lot of questions around what can, an organization do in such a case, whether the Trans Act now itself doesn't lend clarity on a lot of things, right? But I think as a corporate, what you can do is, accept documentation of people, regardless of, how the documentation has changed over the time, from dead names to, the authentic gender that people represent. So to have a way where people can express themselves in the attire, in the clothing, access to washrooms, right? It's not limited by the legal gender or the assigned gender, but to acknowledge that people can use these resources regardless of the gender expression and the gender that they are authentically identifying as. Having benefits, right, with no conditions of, again, what is the gender you identify or whatever, right? You have the benefit as it is, like the surgery, access to hormone therapy, access to, and if people are not even wanting to transition, how do you respect their gender identity and expression? So to create safety nets around bullying or harassment, all of these things. So if you notice, none of these things are actually something that you have to depend really on the law. The law must change. There are problematic sections which the community is raising the voice for. But as an organization, you can create policies that are flexible, not only to trans individuals, but also intersex, non-binary individuals, right? Which are probably not even represented properly in the Trans Act today. So you can go into specifics, and there are people who you can reach out to help with those specifics.
Thanks. We're getting a lot of what can we do questions, which is really, really good. So I'm going to ask, two together again, because in the interest of time, I think we have about 10 minutes. So the first has come from Shweta Bharadwaj about how can parents support their LGBTQ children without them feeling they're different, which I think is very good, which we should talk about. And the second is back to corporate, which is how do small businesses and startups work towards LGBTQ inclusion? That has come from Twitter, Anushka Shah. So should we do the parents question first, and who wants to answer it? How can parents support the LGBTQ children without making them feel that they are different in any way? I'm leaving this open to everyone. Rafiul, Grace, Neelam, Ritesh.
Parmesh, you have a chapter on loving your children. So why don't you answer this?
Okay. I will answer it by just saying that I think any parent, the responsibility of any parent is to just embrace and love and support your children, right? There is, I mean, you can use the oft repeated Khalil Gibran poem if you want, which has been forwarded about 1 million times about your children being themselves and you just being caretakers for them if you want. But I think fundamentally, your role is to support your children. And I think in terms of without making them feel they're different is I think every child is different in their own way. And you want to love and respect your children for their difference, right? I mean, if you wanted children to be similar to each other, you would buy robots, I suppose, and, you know, replace batteries. But, you know, I think human beings, when you're having kids or when you're adopting kids or when you're, however you are choosing to take care of kids, you love them for who they are. In the book, I've shown so many examples of loving and caring parents. And that's made the huge difference, right? So the whole chapter is called, it's about loving your children, which is a reversal of the Karan Johar line from K3G, which is, you know, it's all about loving your parents. And here I'm saying, no, parents need to love their queer children. And I've shown so many amazing children. I've given the example of Ghazal Daliwal, whose parents, you know, went from door to door telling the family members and neighbors that, you know, our daughter has transitioned. This is her new name. We have loved and accepted her. We need you to love and accept her, right? That, think of the confidence that, you know, this act that my parents are with me does to that queer child, right? I've spoken about Kusuma in Bangalore and her mother. And, you know, she thought her mother would not understand. But in fact, when she showed her mother this Kannada web serial, the mother wanted to see, saying that what happens next, and she was so eager, right? I've given examples of Abhina and the mom. I've spoken about the Swikar parent group. I've spoken about so many queer weddings which are taking place, whether it's Sandeep and Reuben, whether it's Keshav Cyril, so many. I've spoken about, you know, lesbian partners who are raising a child with a wonderful ecosystem all around them. And these are, all of this is truth. This is also happening. So I've given this chapter to give people a sense that this is not airy-fairy and only happens in movies. All around us in India, we are also having parents who are accepting their queer children. So if you want to be a good parent, you have to love and accept your queer children because it is in our culture to do so. To be a good parent means to accept. So that is my advice. And with that, we will go to the next question, which is small companies, because then Anushka has asked that. Big companies though seem to be doing. How can we advise small companies?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
Okay. I think small companies, in my opinion, have a lot more power and flexibility compared to larger ones, right? Because you're small, you're lean, you're agile. You can make decisions faster. So I think if your founders, you know, are well intended, you don't have to work around policies or anything like that. All you need is a family kind of a space. If you are accepted as a family member in that startup or in a small company, that's all you need first, right? Because end of the day, how your team treats you, do you have an opportunity to excel and grow like everybody else? That's what you need. Also, I think small businesses, you know, you can take decisions of hiring. Grace and Neelam spoke about hiring quite a bit, right? You don't have to look at degrees, formal degrees. You can flex around more to hire people with skills, right? And to make that clear distinction. And I also saw a question on merit, right? So what is merit? Is merit having certain marks? Is merit having graduated from particular institute, or is merit actually being able to do the job that is required at hand, right? So you start as a small company, you can make that distinction very easily, to say that if this is the job and this is what I need done, does this person, regardless of the spectrum of identity, of disability, of any other parameters, are they able to do the job? And if they are not able to do today, can they do with a little mentoring? Can they do a little bit of you put them on to specific mentors who can groom them over a 6-month period of time, and maybe that's flexibility for that 6 months where you're not evaluating them perhaps at the same standard, but grooming them. And after that period of time, right, after that internship or apprenticeship, whatever you call it, then you start having the same bar of merit. So I think as a small company, you have that power to make that change.
Yeah, just want to add something here, if that's okay.
Yeah.
No, and I really want to reinforce what Ritesh just said. Some of the biggest success we've seen with our partner companies when we were actually creating job opportunities was for people who didn't come with great degrees, or who didn't come with, I would say, people, they were hired for their attitude, is what I would say. You don't always hire people because obviously you want IIMs, IITs, and you keep that aside. But also when you know that a community may not have had such an exposure, may not have had such the privilege that most others have for access to education or skills, you need to hire people for their attitude. And like Ritesh said, can they build those skills in the next 6 months to 1 year? And when you give them that platform, you know the kind of returns you will get in your organization. It's just unparalleled, and the kind of commitment that they would have as well. So I say this with experience itself, that through PeriFerry and the organizations, the partners that we worked with, especially large corporates, have now started becoming a bit more flexible with their entire merit system, with their requirement for the graduation degrees, etc., because they're realizing at the end of the day, what matters is, does this person stay with me for long? Does this person give back to my organization? And if you're getting that, then why not? And I think small organizations have that flexibility and also have that patience. So we should really do that.
Yeah, and one of the things that actually excites me most now with, and we've been getting a lot of, so earlier in the past few years, it would be a lot of companies doing webinars and asking for questions. But now of late, it's been really good to see the FICCIs and the CIIs and the Society for Human Resource Management. And one of the Queeristan events is planned with the World Economic Forum. They have these global shapers hubs. Yeah. And the people who are inviting me are the shapers hubs in Lucknow, Patna, cities all over the country. So I think that's where, the small businesses can intersect, with the activists and the community-based organization in these cities, and actually talk about why inclusion makes sense for everyone. So Neelam, completely, how do we change the idea of merit? How do we, think about inclusion beyond the larger towns into the smaller towns and the smaller companies? And that's when we will get that scale, right? And at the government as well. So that, as Grace was saying, it doesn't have to become a battle every time to just get your degree. There is a question about translation into regional languages. Yes, Deepthi, I hope the book gets translated into multiple languages. I hope my publishers are listening. They better be. I mean, it is the launch event. So I hope we can translate into as many languages as possible as well. Workplace where we have set up ERG. I like the Bhavna Serene question. So Bhavna's question is about how the legal system paralyzes the ability of organizations to show support towards the LGBT community. And what small steps are being taken to correct the legal system? Essentially, how do you work towards addressing the persistent mindset that breeds discrimination? Because, the question is essentially, how do you change this LGBT inclusion mindset post 377 from being something that was on the agenda for a law to change to now for culture to change. And Rafiul, maybe you wanna attempt that along with Grace, talking about the different kind of works that you all are doing before we get to Neelam and Ritesh.
Can you repeat that question for me again?
So yeah, this is like Miss World contestant. Now, can you repeat the? It's very much very broadly. It's about post 37 until 377 was there. It was like a legal agenda. But now 377 organizations are becoming more and more vocal to support. But how do you move this to a cultural change instead of just saying we want this law to go and law is gone? How do we bring that kind of cultural change after this in society?
So I would again like to plug in the book, because I feel that what is quite remarkable about Queeristan is that like even, and I will acknowledge my own bias here, like as an activist, too often when I think about corporate, like about companies and all, I always imagine them in silos. I feel like, oh, they're not that interested to get into activism or do grassroots work. But I think what I've seen in this book is that the way you have brought all these different worlds together, and you have said the change is possible only when we work together or we understand this interrelatedness, I think. And what you just suggested, even about small towns like Patna, where companies can actually work with community-based organizations to build that kind of resource, right? So I definitely see a lot of that work, that culture shift happening already. Of course, it's not always noticed because there's not a lot of conversation around it. But I think even in small town India today, as Ritesh pointed out, across campuses, the kind of initiatives that are emerging in cultural spaces, the kind of work that artists are doing and queer collectives are doing, I feel all of that is, or even parents group, support group like Swikar that is in Bombay with amazing people like Aruna and others. So I definitely think it is a long road ahead, certainly, but I also feel optimistic about the fact that a lot of that work is happening. Culture shift is happening, and I think we need to understand that we live in a world where a lot of this is interconnected, and we need to work together rather than in silos. Law, companies, like different arts, culture, everything, we have to work together. That's how I would feel change will happen. Yeah.
Would anyone else like to attempt? How do we get this?
I'll probably just make it very short, a closing line,
Yeah.
For this question of culture change, right? I think it's almost like a queer person exploring their identity and coming out, right? So if you give that same analogy to someone who doesn't understand the community, right? Whether they are whether it's a company itself, or whether it's a person who works in a company who doesn't understand this. So I think give them that space that they will have their own journey of understanding, accepting, and then becoming an ally. So yeah, I mean, give that space for them to come out
In,
of that ally
in,
closet.
in Parmesh's word, that process of articulation. Sorry, Parmesh, I love that. I think for all of us, it has been a great process of articulation and articulating ourselves. That's been a big thing. And I think we all need time, as Ritesh pointed out.
Yes.
And suddenly that change is happening and will happen.
The change is definitely happening. And I think as we've heard in this conversation, for all of those who are seeing this, as you will see in the book, it's, there's actually incredible efforts being made all over the country, which is what Queeristan is all about. So to all our panelists, to our sign language interpreters, to all the teams that made this launch and this book happen, thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in.